Lin leaned down and asked her why he should be the one fetching flowers for her. Who gave her the authority to order someone around like that? If she wanted flowers, then she could move her own legs and pick them herself. The girl froze, stunned that Dennis could dare speak this way. Sweat gathered on her brow as she tried to comprehend the change. Lin didn't give her the chance to recover. He shoved her aside with a push and told her to move out of the way. She cried out in outrage, demanding if he had gone insane and how he dared treat her like this. She threatened that he would never be forgiven, that she now hated him completely, and that Dennis was nothing but a worthless piece of trash. Lin only smiled and told her it was good for her to feel that way. The girl had never been humiliated like this before. Her face burned with fury, and deep down she resolved that she would make Dennis regret this moment. The scene shifted. Lin made his way into an old tavern, deciding that since he had no knowledge of the dwarves' kingdom, this was the best place to start. Taverns always attracted all kinds of people, and information flowed freely within their walls. Approaching the counter, Lin set down 2 gold coins and ordered several bottles of wine. As he turned, his eyes fell upon a beautiful woman sitting alone to his left. Lin picked up one of the bottles and walked toward her. With a casual smile, he asked if she would like to share a drink with him. The woman looked surprised at first, then gave a small, amused smile. She told him that while she didn't mind joining him, his attempt at flirting was rather clumsy. Lin only chuckled, pouring the wine as he admitted she had already seen through him. After drinking heavily, finishing 3 full rounds of wine, the lady was completely drunk. She began telling Lin that although his drinking capacity was a little lacking, he was clearly wealthy and far better off than the useless ones who only leech off the adventurers' guild. Lin was curious about what this guild was, but before he could even ask, the woman continued speaking. She explained that ever since the kingdom had disbanded its army, most of the soldiers had turned into adventurers. Over the years, however, ghouls and monsters had grown rampant. Many people had become too accustomed to comfort, and only a few still had the courage or willingness to take real risks. Lin saw an opportunity in her words and smiled, agreeing with her. He said that if someone could solve this problem, it would truly be a great thing. The woman laughed out loud in her drunken state, telling him that if anyone managed to defeat the ghouls, that person would become nothing less than the hero of the dwarves. She added that such a hero could go directly to see the king. Lin realized then that this hero role was genuine. If he could defeat the ghouls, he would indeed have the chance to approach the king, and from there, learning the dwarves' forging techniques would no longer be difficult. That was exactly what he wanted. The scene then shifted to a traveler's inn. Inside, Lin woke up with a painful headache. Looking around, he was startled to see that he had actually spent the night with the beautiful lady who was still asleep beside him. His movements stirred her awake. Lin tried to act calm, though he could hardly believe what had happened the night before. The woman asked if she had drunk too much and forgotten what they had done. She moved closer to him, saying that when he was drunk, he didn't seem like any dwarf at all, but instead turned into an untouchable monster. She laughed, saying this was a side no ordinary dwarf could have, but maybe it was because he was a hybrid with unusual stamina. Lin thought back, realizing how close he had come to exposing himself while drunk, and it was fortunate that his transformation had not been broken. Becoming serious again, Lin knew what his next step must be. He had to defeat the ghouls to earn the king's favor. But the question was, who would believe that a single dwarf could handle such a task alone? The only way forward was to connect with someone from the guild. He immediately began getting dressed. The woman was surprised, asking why he was leaving so early when the sun had not even risen yet. Lin simply told her that he had something important to attend to and needed to leave first. She asked at least for his name and where he lived, but Lin only smiled and walked away. This made the lady even more restless. She called after him not to go, saying she had never had this much fun before and had never felt like she was in heaven until last night. By morning, Lin stood in front of a massive building, the Adventurers' Guild. The place seemed unusually quiet, and he wondered if it was even still active. Still, he entered and soon met 2 dwarves inside. They asked if he wanted to join the guild to hunt ghouls. The second dwarf seemed pleased, saying it was always good to see young people with ambition, and they warmly welcomed him to their Carmen guild. Though the guild was quiet, it was the only one in the kingdom, so Lin had no other option. Since ghouls were exceptionally powerful, one of the dwarves asked if Lin had any abilities he could demonstrate, just to prove he could hunt. Before he could respond, the dwarf placed a massive hammer on the ground. It was the wielding iron hammer, a weapon capable of granting the user a full-body layer of steel protection. Lin moved through the forest alongside the other adventurers from the Guild of the Dwarks, their boots pressing softly into the damp ground. Both he and the others wondered aloud why no ghosts had appeared so far. The entire area was unnervingly quiet, even though the forest was thick with fear and a dark purple miasma that drifted through the air like heavy fog. They whispered among themselves, joking nervously about how the ghosts must now be afraid of their companion Dennis, not realizing that Dennis was actually Lin in disguise. They did not know that the one walking with them was someone to be feared far more than the ghosts themselves. As the party advanced, the scene around them began to shift. After some time, shapes flickered in the gloom and 3 ghosts appeared ahead of them, while several more crept behind in the shadows. Yet as soon as the spirits caught sight of Lin in the form of Dennis, they froze. A wide red aura radiated from him, thick and sharp, his killing intent plain in the air. Even an inch closer and the ghosts sensed they would be cut down instantly. The moment they realized the threat before them, the ghouls turned and fled, running back into the deeper parts of the forest from which they had emerged. The adventurers stared, confused by the sight. They whispered among themselves, wondering what had just happened. To them it looked as though the ghosts were mocking them, but Lin understood the truth. The ghouls were not weak or reckless, they were clever, and they had chosen to run the instant they recognized a power they could not handle. Soon the adventurers emerged from the tall grasses that had been covering their path, keeping low in an attempt to shield themselves from the spirits. Yet as they stepped out, the purple miasma thickened and coiled even stronger than before, pressing in around them. Many more ghouls emerged from the deeper forest this time, their forms shifting in the haze. With them came another presence, stronger and heavier, the leader of the ghouls, the true cause of the forest's haunting. The low-ranked adventurers panicked at the sight, their faces pale as they saw the horde gathering before them. They hissed at Dennis to get down and hide too. This was no small skirmish. This was a full horde, dozens of ghouls, perhaps even triple or quadruple the numbers they had ever seen before, moving as one under their leader's command. Fear rolled off the adventurers like sweat. But then Dennis spoke, his voice calm and steady. He told them not to hide, but to stand and fight, because defeating the ghouls would bring them rewards. The adventurers tried to stop him, stammering that ghouls always attacked in hordes and could not be faced head-on. Yet the boy would not stop. He apologized to them, not for what he was about to do, but for ignoring their pleas. He knew he had the strength to overpower them all. In the next instant, Lin leapt into the air. He drew the sword Dennis had been given and faced the screeching ghouls. Their harsh cries tore at the air, a sound meant to weaken the will of any fighter. Yet it did nothing to him. He cut into them without hesitation, hacking and slashing his way through the mass until the ground was littered with critically damaged spirits. The adventurers could only stare, their mouths wide open, their eyes round with disbelief. They whispered to one another in confusion, asking who Dennis really was. This display of power was not right in any sense. The monsters he fought were not mere creatures. These were ghouls, things even seasoned warriors struggled to kill. And yet Dennis cut through them as though he were slicing chickens with a kitchen knife. When the scene settled, the problem of the ghouls was gone. The spirits lay defeated, and their leader no longer stood among them. Dennis held the huge head of the ghoul leader in his hand like a grim trophy. With a calm smile, he told the adventurers they should return and inform the king of what had happened. Shame flushed their faces as they realized how little help they had been. The adventurers could not help but smile as they left the haunted forest. Even though they had not lifted a hand in the battle, they knew that because of Dennis their guild's name would now spread throughout the region. They would be credited for solving the ghoul problem, and their standing would rise. They immediately agreed to everything Lin proposed and began the march together toward the Dwarf King's palace. Morning light broke over the city as the scene shifted. The palace itself came into view, not a towering citadel, but a vast 2-story mansion of dark stone and carved wood, large enough to house 20 or 30 people comfortably. It was imposing nonetheless, with tall doors and guards stationed at every entrance. As Dennis and the group approached, A line of soldiers stepped forward and blocked their way, announcing curtly that the king was unwell and could not receive visitors. The dwarven adventurers bristled at this. They had proof that the ghoul infestation had been dealt with and wanted to show it. They argued with the guards, saying that if the palace needed proof, they would present it and demonstrate that the threat had been removed permanently. Yet the soldiers refused to yield. Then, from beyond the door, a soft feminine voice instructed the soldiers to step aside and let the group in. The heavy door opened, and to their surprise, the ruler of the kingdom was not a king at all, but a queen. Queen Dale stepped forward in a crimson dress that fitted her perfectly, a fan held lightly before her lips. Her poise and the sharpness in her eyes silenced the room. The adventurers bowed low to Her Majesty and began to explain that the young man before her, Dennis, had wiped out the ghouls threatening the forest and the kingdom. As soon as she heard the name Dennis, the queen's eyes widened slightly. Behind her fan, she hid a small, knowing smile. It was clear she recognized the name or the person and that she sensed an extraordinary presence about him. Dennis did not look or feel like any other dwarf she had met. His aura was entirely different. Queen Dale listened and then announced in a clear voice that the guild rewards would be arranged later. Someone from the palace would deliver them directly to the guild hall. For now only Dennis was to remain. The rest were to leave immediately. The adventurers were more than satisfied with this, thanked the queen, and departed, still happy about their promised rewards. Left alone, Lin saw his chance. In the guise of Dennis, he said he did not desire gold or ordinary spoils as a reward. Instead, he wished to learn the craft of forging. But before he could finish his request, the queen snapped her fan shut, revealing her full face. She raised a hand, cutting off his words, and said she would have to think carefully about what kind of reward to give. No one in the Dwarven Kingdom had seen such bravery from someone so young in decades. If Dennis truly wanted to master the forging craft, she said, he would have to be ready to pay a cost. Inside, Lin felt a twinge of irritation. After all he had done that day, his heroism still was not being acknowledged. He had fought only to gain the right to learn forging, yet here he was being treated like a petitioner. The queen noticed the look on his face and gave a small, enigmatic smile. She told him not to misunderstand her. But then, with a flick of her fan, she mentioned a rumor that Dennis had spent the previous night with her sister. For that alone he should be punished, she said, but considering that he had rid the kingdom of its ghouls, she would let it pass this time. If he wanted to learn forging, however, they would have to discuss other, more personal terms. Lin froze, trying to make sense of her words. He remembered the blonde lady from the night before and realized what the queen was implying. He also realized he was being framed. Quickly he explained that he had not seduced anyone. Rather, he had been the one taken advantage of after being made drunk. But the queen waved his protest aside. She said she did not care about the details and wondered aloud whether Dennis would show her the same conscience that he had shown her sister. Her eyes glinted over the top of the fan. The air in the room grew heavy. Lin understood that the conversation was no longer about rewards or forging alone. The queen was setting her own conditions, and there seemed to be no easy way out of them. Queen Dale was serious as she started approaching Lin with some inappropriate thoughts, immediately grabbing the boy's hand and pressing it between her soft melons, which are indeed huge. But you all should enjoy the flowers instead and hype the video if you are liking it. Meanwhile, Lin was still maintaining his transformation as Dennis, realizing that the queen was serious and wanted to do some pleasant workouts with him. The queen continued to flirt with Dennis while his hands were in heaven, wondering if he could not just touch her heart and see whether she was truly serious. But deep inside, Lin knew that they had only just met and that it was quite forward for a queen to act like this. Lin stayed serious as he told the queen that he still needed assurance she was not planning to set him up, and if she did not clarify it then, he could not act recklessly. Otherwise, it would have greater repercussions. The queen simply smiled, explaining to Lin that even if he wanted to, he could not act recklessly toward her because she was the queen of the kingdom. Of course, the lady did not know who Dennis actually was or what kind of monster he could become once he transformed back, but for now things continued. Queen Dale told Dennis that she did not care and just wanted a good experience, because the king of the throne was about to die in the Darwin Kingdom, and she was going to be the new queen soon. She wanted to find a handsome boy to be her king, and according to her, there was no problem with that. As Dennis was quite muscular, and according to her sister, packed a punch down there too, there was no problem with anything. Continuing, the queen also told Dennis that the king had lost his stamina before even getting old because he had been reckless and messed around every day when he was young and had not trained, so his stamina vanished. All this conversation resulted in the final fact that the queen wanted to have fun, and if Dennis wanted to increase his forging skills with the Darwin equipment, then he would have to listen to the lady. Finally, Lin agreed, and a system notification popped up that his health had been increased by 240, along with power increased by 100 and defense by 102. As Lin was still pushing through and the lady was enjoying the moment, Lin asked her if now she was willing to teach him the forging craft of equipment because she had been satisfied multiple times. But suddenly, while they were continuing their workout, a soldier came running inside the queen's room without knocking first and announced that the king was now in bad shape, and they thought that he had deceased. Before the soldier could even finish the sentence, he was completely flabbergasted, face full of red, wondering what had happened. But the soldier knew his place, and that he could not just ask the queen what had happened. He stayed flustered while he knelt in front of the queen, asking her to go and take a look because the king was not well. Queen Dale immediately got up in her translucent dress while she smiled devilishly, realizing that the day was truly a double blessing for her because she had two great events non-stop. Meanwhile, Dennis got back and started dressing himself, telling the queen that he would head back to the guild first and come to find her later. But the queen stopped him, telling the boy that he had to come with her as the palace would be his home from now on, and he would be the new king while Queen Dale was the new queen of the kingdom. Lin wondered how he could become the king when he still had many things to do. As the scene shifted, many attendants came inside the king's room while the queen was also present. The king was nothing but a frail old man who had no life left, and it looked like he had been lifeless for quite a while. Lin immediately looked at the king and realized that the old man must have been lifeless for a long time and was just being kept in the bed as a figurehead. As the queen realized she had been exposed, she told Dennis not to look at her like that or else she was going to do something more exciting. She started explaining that Queen Dale was not the king's first wife, and he had only forced her to marry him 10 years ago when he was already old and already unable to rise again and walk properly. So his death was quite imminent. That was the reason why the queen was so anxious to find someone powerful to be her king instead. The queen immediately told Lin that she had to take care of the coronation ceremony in the next couple of days, and until then the boy should be free to explore the palace as much as he liked. Lin formally agreed to the queen, and hearing that, the lady hushed him, telling him that he did not have to call Queen Dale as queen anymore and instead call her his darling with compassion. Even Lin decided to reluctantly go along with the queen for the sake of the magic tool, calling the queen his darling. A few days later, we come to know that Lin was standing in front of a huge treasury door. We come to know that after 2 days of soft and hard persuasion, day and night, the hard work of relentless nights finally paid off, and Lin got the key to the magic tool storage from Queen Dale. Even when the dwarves had not forged any magical tools for decades, they should still have some stock left for emergencies. According to what the queen had told Lin, he got near the lock and started twisting the key, which took 2.5 turns to the left and then 2.5 turns to the right. After that, the final 2 turns to the left, and it was open. But before it was completely debarred, Lin would have to sing some folk songs and perform some ancient dances. Finally, after it was done, a crimson eye opened in the middle of the treasury door, and it started opening with a creaking noise. As soon as the gate opened, Lin, in the form of Dennis, had utter shock on his face because the whole place was completely empty. It was then that the boy realized that the treasury had nothing because probably the lazy king from before had been living off the past for years and sold all the magical tools because he just wanted to have fun. There was no wonder that everyone was living so comfortably because the money was never an issue due to the high-level equipment. But suddenly, as Lin started looking around, he saw a storage box where multiple dwarvian armors and equipment were kept. Lin wondered what the equipment were and started scanning. One equipment was a light green armor, which looked old and dusty, and as the system notification told Lin, he came to know that it was a life armor that survived by absorbing the host's blood. It possessed extremely strong defense and a protective awareness capable of autonomously detecting enemy attacks and activating defenses. Along with that, the equipment also included the cursed blade, which was forged from the spine of a demon dragon. The wielder's obsession increased its power, making the blade even stronger and more terrifying, and more power could be unleashed due to the user's obsession. Along with that, the last equipment was a pendant which was the eye of the dark spawn that comes from creatures of unknown origins, and after their death they are taken by the dwarves. It can use magical forging abilities to create an eye that can see all things, but it also had a controlling nature, and Lin should be careful to not get controlled by it. Lin started looking at the armor, wondering if this was the true power of the dwarves. It was not about forging weapons anymore and felt more like creating life itself, which was sentient. Lin wondered how the armor would behave after getting some fresh blood so that it could work. Lin bit his tongue and dropped a few pieces of blood onto the armor, and as soon as it happened, the armor started acting vigorously as if it attacked Lin, but in reality it was being absorbed by the boy, and he was getting insanely powerful by it, slowly but surely. Lin was absorbing the armor, and he came to know that this armor had 3 forms, one of which had a humanoid look, the second one was bulkier, and the third one was the sturdiest of all, which consumed the most blood. After Lin deactivated the armor, it started getting sucked inside a pendant which was handy and emanating a green color which suited the goblin leader. It was a crystal-like thing, and Lin took it out in his hand, looking at it and wondering how high the defense level of the armor actually was. Now it was the turn for the demon sword blade. As soon as Lin took it in his hand, before he could even lift it, he started feeling the sense of oppression coming from the sword. He decided not to use it himself, and instead give it to Alice when he got back to his goblin army. After the things were finished, Lin realized that it was a pity there were only 3 of these items in the entire magic tool storage, and he could only have the group of now lazy dwarves restart the furnace and forge magic tools properly under him. If they could produce at least 20 items a day, then it would take an additional 2 months to meet the requirement. Lin realized that he would have to stay for a while longer and enjoy his stay in the new Dwarvian kingdom where he was the king, and had a beautiful queen who took care of him day and night. The scene shifts to the coronation ceremony, where we see that finally Dale was announced as a queen, and Dennis was her new king. A huge carriage with golden horses was going along the Dwarvian kingdom, while each and every dwarf was looking at it from the sides as it was protected by many soldiers. All the dwarven females were wondering if what the queen's sister told them was true, and if the handsome guy who was riding with Queen Dale was the most manly in the whole city, having ultimate stamina, which could satisfy anyone. It was also said that Dennis had broken the dwarven historical record of pleasure, which was really enviable for every girl who did not experience him. Everyone was screaming that Prince Dennis was so manly and so handsome, not able to imagine how he could do this. On the other hand, the dwarven men were actually the complete opposite of the females, not able to believe that even with their burly bodies and huge stamina, they could not do it, and how someone like Dennis was able to satisfy all the women. They were not able to imagine how Dennis could have done this and had also made the queen fall for him, wondering that if they were all dwarves, why Dennis was so much stronger than them. On the other hand, our boy was looking at everyone, getting happy that the goblin's racial advantage was doing quite good for him. But suddenly someone came in front of the carriage of the queen, and she started stopping it. We see that it was the gold digger girlfriend of the real Dennis, who started accusing our boy that he was just a big-hearted playboy who not only falsely promised her, but now also lied to her that he loved her. The girl was rambling on, and while the queen was getting annoyed, asking Dennis about who she was. But Lane, in disguise of Dennis, told the queen that the girl in front of them was just a gold digger who did not deserve the love that Dennis gave her, and she was nothing compared to the dear queen who really understood how good Dennis actually was. Now the girl was being abused by everyone in the audience as they wondered about where the girl came from and if she was out of her mind. Some even more beautiful girls wondered about what kind of person she was, because if they could not get a date, the gold digger was expecting someone to chase after her with that average face. Some girls even thought that the gold digger had a thick skin, and even when it was getting embarrassing, she was not moving at all. But the dumb girl was still going on, asking Dennis about why this was happening, because he had clearly pursued her before. So she wondered about why Dennis had not told her about how amazing he really was, even when she did not let him touch her at all. The gold digger was rambling on and on that she was being betrayed, and even after she had taken the initiative to win Dennis back, the boy was full of attitude and having unrealistic expectations from her. But still, the girl wondered about what the boy wanted so that he could come back. Dennis smiled devilishly while telling the girl that since she had the courage to stop the queen's carriage, he could not forgive her. But if she would let the whole city witness her sincerity by kneeling down and using the most moving way to express her love for Dennis, then maybe Dennis could think about it. The gold digger was shocked, wondering about why Dennis was treating her like that, asking him if he really wanted the girl to do something like this in front of the public. But deep inside, the girl was still thinking about her benefit, remembering that Dennis was the guy who was now the dwarvian hero as he killed the ghoul. And he was also the manliest man in the whole city, and if agreeing to his request would allow the girl to pursue him again, she would happily be able to do it, knowing the benefits. The girl clenched her fists, knowing that this would be impossible for her to do, but still, she gritted her teeth and dropped down onto the ground in front of the queen's carriage, calling Dennis her master and getting ready to do anything that he desires. Meanwhile, all the audience, along with the queen, were looking at her, not able to believe how thick-skinned the gold digger girl actually was, not able to believe that she really got down to her knees. The girl was listening to everything, but still, even when she wanted to answer them, she did nothing, thinking that as long as she could serve the manliest man, Dennis, then who laughs and who doesn't was not a concern to her at all. But to her shock, Dennis was displeased, immediately telling the guards to throw the crazy woman aside from the street, as she was doing anything in the street without thinking of her dignity, and it was disgusting for Dennis to look at. The queen was surprised, complimenting Dennis that he was really bad, and while the soldiers grabbed the gold digger girl, she shockingly looked at our boy, asking him about why he lied to her. And even after she did everything he said, why wouldn't our boy forgive her? The girl showed her true colors, telling Dennis that she was the one who was allowing our boy to pursue her, and now she allows Dennis to sleep with her, but still, the boy did not want it at all. The soldiers immediately grabbed her away, and Dennis turned around, telling the gold digger that someone like her, who could do such things in public, was not worthy of being associated with him. The gold digger was broken, wondering about how the boy who was in the palm of her hands was gone in an instant after finding a better girl. She wondered about when Dennis's mouth became sharp like this, and since when he had been so cunning. We come to know that after the celebration parade, the whole city entered into the endless drinking and merrymaking for the queen's marriage. And inside the large dwarf castle, many guests had been invited for celebrating the queen's marriage along with the queen's coronation. In the meeting, Dennis was standing in front of pretty women, saying hello to everyone, and telling them that it was truly an honor for him to witness the beauty of so many stunning ladies. We come to know that Lin was talking to 3 ladies. One of them was skilled in creating world-class magical eyes named Duchess Jamila, along with an important royal member named Vinny, and an important dwarven member called Empress Lin. Jamila told the queen that she really knew how to pick men, as the last one gave her the throne, and the new one had a sweet tongue and a lot of stamina that women want. Empress Lin came closer to the queen, asking her if what she heard was really true, and if everything was really that amazing. The queen explained that, after being stifled for 10 years, the god had finally shown themselves to her in the form of Dennis, and the queen even suspected if our boy was actually the embodiment of Zeus to have so much lightning stamina. As all the girls were talking with the queen, Dennis was looking at them from the side, knowing that it was enough for his plans to work. Pouring some wine into his hands, he started thinking that the queen had just taken over the kingdom and is weak in power compared to the king. And if she wants to restart the Apollo furnace that has not been seen for decades and recreate the magical tools, she is definitely going to face a lot of opposition. Lin knew that he would have to actually find an opportunity to help the queen consolidate her power, and it would take a bit of time. The scene shifts again to the Queen's chamber, where we see the room was actually empty. But still, Lin was lying down with his ripped body exposed. Suddenly, the door to the Queen's chamber started opening, and Dennis was shocked, because this time it was not the Queen. The girl in front put her fingers onto Lin's lips, and we see that it was Duchess Jamila herself who told Dennis not to shout, or if he dared to do so, then the lady was going to accuse him of assault. The Duchess was having the most naughty look any female can have while she started rubbing herself up, telling Dennis that she was really regretting not meeting our boy earlier than the Queen. Otherwise, she would have shown Dennis a pleasurable time more than the Queen herself, who was a newbie. As the Duchess started doing her things, Dennis was shocked, asking her if it would be good for her to be seen like this by the Queen herself, while he wondered if the Queen of the Dwarves, along with all the other women in the kingdom, were always this direct. But knowing that the Duchess was not stopping, Lin immediately grabbed her hands and started to signify his dominance, thinking that even when Jamila was a Duchess, she was overwhelming with power and could also forge world-class magical tools. So if Lin would be able to subdue her, then it would help him immensely. The scene with Duchess Jamila and our boy Lin, or should I say Dennis, continued, and we see that Dennis was enjoying the lady quite literally, kissing her at every moment he could. But before they could move any further, the door of the giant room started knocking, and Dennis was shocked along with the Duchess. She immediately covered herself with a blanket, while Lin was confused, wondering why she was suddenly so scared now when she had been so eager just moments before. Dennis opened the door and was greeted by two other noble ladies, who wondered if the Queen was not in the room because they had been told the Queen needed something to discuss with them. But they had not been able to find her. Lin finally stepped out, closing the door behind him, and told the ladies that the Queen had not returned yet, and that since it was so late, it was rude to barge in at this hour. He suggested they come later. Both high-class nobles looked at each other and smiled, realizing they could use Dennis to their heart's content. Immediately, they showed fake sorrow that the Queen was not there, agreeing they would just have to discuss the matter with Prince Dennis alone. Lin was shocked, wondering what was happening, as the noble ladies barged into the room and immediately sat down on either side of him, touching his six-pack abs like hungry predators. Lin wondered if they really had something important to talk about, or if they just wanted to have fun. The princess still argued that they had an important matter to discuss with Dennis, but Lin was stunned as he saw them not asking anything at all, only pulling at his pants, trying to reveal the hardness beneath. Meanwhile, Duchess Jamila was shocked and jealous of the other noble ladies interrupting her time, like sour radishes. But suddenly the door knocked again, and this time the young sister was calling out for the Queen, wondering if she was inside. We come to know that all the ladies knew the Queen was not there. They only wanted to meet Dennis for their own fun. Everyone was shocked at the repeated interruptions, and both noble ladies got the same idea as the Duchess, lifting the blanket and climbing inside, thinking no one would find out. But as they entered, they saw Duchess Jamila already inside, now exposed completely. Meanwhile, the young sister wondered if the Queen was not there, licking her lips, knowing she would get to taste something delicious again. She thought that if the Queen was absent, then she would not be accused of stealing the prince. The sister believed the Queen was selfish for claiming Dennis as her own, when she herself had been the first to tell the Queen about him. But as soon as the door opened, the sister was shocked to see the three noblewomen coming out of the room together, embarrassed from head to toe. The sister grew suspicious and decided to follow the noblewomen, who were not so noble after all. Lin, on the other hand, left the doors open now, knowing no one else would come. Still, even he did not expect the noblewomen to be so eager about what was down there. However, he knew they would have to find a less busy day to get what they wanted. For now, he knew it was time to move forward with his plan concerning the Queen. As the scene shifted to the following night, when the Queen had returned, we saw a passionate workout session between Lin and the Queen as they moved with friction again and again. The lady softened herself, while Dennis touched her cheeks, explaining that he had a matter concerning the future of the kingdom to discuss. The Queen immediately wondered if Dennis could not have chosen a better time for such matters than during such intense exercise, but Lin continued regardless, explaining while she blushed and listened. He told her that their kingdom's strength was weakening, and they should restart the Apollo furnace to mass-produce magic tools to strengthen their national power. The Queen was shocked, suddenly brought back to her senses, knowing that restarting the furnace would not be easy. It had been sealed for many years. Moreover, forging magic tools was not simple. The process required magical resources, enchanting, and the blessings of noble deities for success. The queen knew that for mass production, they would need to mobilize the entire nation. But since nobles and commoners had lived comfortably for so long, they had grown lazy and unwilling to work. She also knew that, as a newly seated queen, she could not issue such a big order. Otherwise, she feared she would lose the people's support. Dennis then spoke again as the queen calmed down. He explained that he had a method regarding the common people. He knew all the dwarves in the kingdom were addicted to alcohol, so they could be promised a daily quota of free, high-quality wine if they participated in the forging. For the sake of such wine, they would gladly put in effort, since it would cost them nothing. Dennis moved behind the queen, massaging her as he explained that this method not only showed her concern for the people, but would also help her establish her own prestige, which was a good thing. Lin knew that, as for the nobles, the queen could leave them to him, because he could handle all of them with his intense workouts. The queen enjoyed every movement, surprised that her new Prince Dennis cared so much for her while giving her such pleasure again and again. In the end, she could not control herself any longer, immediately pouncing onto Dennis, telling him he seemed even more captivating after she learned how much he truly cared for her. We come to know that Queen Dale's decree and the allure of fine wine were enough for the dwarves to ignite their passion and proceed as scheduled, creating magic tools with the help of Apollo, as it required mining, enchanting, and forging with the blessings of the noble gods to succeed. The forging methods of various magical tools were still clear in the minds of the dwarves even when they were drunk. To master the dwarf forging techniques, Lin was actually going into the mines himself actively, and knowing this fact, all the females also gathered in the mines. Even the boy never thought that he would have this much trouble working, but for the plan, he could only endure and keep working. As the scene shifts, we come inside the castle. There, both our boy Dennis and the queen were eating together, where the queen was actually complimenting her boy because she did not expect Dennis to be so outstanding, even mining the minerals personally. With the boy's example, the skilled craftsmen would surely follow suit, thinking that it was an insult to them that a newcomer was working so diligently. But Dennis was sure and told the queen that this was something he must do so that he could learn it. Suddenly, the boy grabbed the queen's hand calmly, telling her that since it was the first day of mining, and even though the royal family was covering all the drinks in the city tonight, just to be safe, Lin thought that he would go on a tour to reassure and encourage everyone so that they wouldn't complain. Lin also knew that if he went there, it would help avoid affecting the progress of the magical tool forging. But Dale was concerned, realizing that it was too late and something could go wrong. She wondered what Lin could do if he encountered danger, but the boy just smiled at her concern, telling the queen that if he was the one who had made short work of ghouls, who else could possibly hurt him? As the scene shifts, we see that Lin was near a bar. After talking to all the dwarves, he decided to be on his way, telling everyone to drink up as much as they wanted, but to be sure to work hard because they would have to live the good life they desired after honestly working. The dwarves were all happy, thanking Dennis because of him they now had endless work and never-ending fine wine. They assured our boy that with the drink and the work, they would definitely do their best. Even Lin realized that the fine wine strategy was effective, and he could finally set his worried heart at ease. But just then, Lin noticed another bar, the last for the night tour, but he saw that it was a completely wrecked one with spider webs all around, wondering if many people came there usually since the place was so remote. As he had been tired all day, he thought that it was just right to have a drink and take a breather. So he opened the door, and as soon as it opened, a female voice with a pleasing tone welcomed Lin to Peggy's tavern. She asked our boy if he would like a glass of rum or brandy. But now that Lin had finally entered the tavern, something felt off because it was filled with only females. He knew that previously the taverns were mostly filled with men, and even though male and female dwarves were known for their love of alcohol, the boy knew there shouldn't be a lack of women elsewhere. Now Lin realized where all those women had gone, knowing that the whole female population was concentrated in this bar. Lin knew that he would have to go, so he immediately turned around and tried opening the door, but he saw that it was closed and locked. Lin screamed, asking the ladies why they had locked it. The females immediately grabbed Lin and asked if he was tired from work and wanted some water because he looked thirsty. They grabbed the boy, got a chair, and made him sit while the whole audience of females watched him. The bartender, Peggy, grabbed a huge bottle and came toward Lin, telling him to try the oolong tea they had on offer because it was really, really delicious. The females started pouring the tea into a glass, telling the boy to try it because he would definitely like it. The bartender was laughing, and Lin did not know what to do. But as Lin chugged the whole tea down, many females were happy that he did it in one go, praising even this small thing about our boy. After he drank, the ladies started smiling devilishly, and we see that Lin suddenly let out all the heat from his body, turning into a flamethrower, while all the females wondered what was going on. Lin was feeling all hot and sweaty, wondering what was happening inside his body because it was not normal urges. As Lin finally looked at the bottle, he realized that it was a stamina-increasing tonic, keeping him standing all day with 92% concentration and only 8% wine. After that, the boy knew that he was in big trouble because now all the females were looking at his long-lasting stamina while licking their lips, knowing that they would enjoy everything that was going to happen. After Lin became completely unconscious due to the effect of the drink, he slowly opened his eyes after a few hours. As soon as he woke up, he wondered what was going on because he woke up on a bed full of women, somehow still dressed after they had done all the workout they could muster. All the females were satisfied from the sweat and pleasure that the workout gave them, sleeping along with Dennis so that he wouldn't feel bad. The boy immediately got up and dressed himself while his legs were shaking because it was leg day. We come to know that Lin trained with 20 women, and now he was afraid that he might end up killing himself playing this stamina game. Even though he thought it would be a piece of cake, it was not, and it took a toll on his body. As the scene shifts, we come to the Queen's chamber once again. The Queen was actually really sad because it was all her fault for not stopping the boy from going out last night. In that sense, the Queen was the one who had harmed the boy and not anyone else. We see that Lin was completely crippled and looked like dried grapes while he told the Queen that he felt like he couldn't go on anymore. But the Queen was crying, telling him that he would have to hold on and not leave her because she still wanted to enjoy a lot with him. After listening to that, Dennis was completely unconscious, and his soul almost left his body but was grabbed back. As the scene shifts, time passes, half a month later, and we see that it was now that Lin could finally get out of bed after all this. We see that Lin had actually time-traveled into his future body because he couldn't wait for 6 months. It was the first time for Lin being so miserable that he almost died. He decided to simply simulate the life directly, quickly take the magic tools, and leave this damned place. But as he opened the simulation system, he realized something and slammed his fist, knowing that he had almost forgotten there was one most important thing to take care of. As the scene shifts, we come to the main forge, which was used by the dwarves to create magical weapons, and it was running at full capacity. We see that Dennis was overseeing all the matters as he stood in front of an anvil where a weapon was being forged by a giant hammer. It was being done by the chief forging master named Bill, who told Prince Dennis that he looked much better, and now that he was well, it had really boosted the morale of the dwarves as everyone was working twice as hard. Lin, though disguised as Dennis, bowed down in front of Master Bill, telling him that he was really satisfied with the progress they were making. But this time, Lin told the master that he would like the chief to personally take action and craft for him a special magic tool for specific circumstances. The chief wondered what purpose the prince had for such a special magical tool, and Lin grinned with a wry laugh while he told the dwarf that he wanted to use it to deal with the strongest guys on the mainland, which included the undead faction along with the Holy Temple. These two factions had always been difficult to deal with, and that was also known by Chief Bill. He wondered how the prince actually had the courage to confront them directly, even at such a young age, and even when the strongest on this continent were the dwarves, but they were secretly hidden, while in the mainland, the Holy Temple and the undead were dominating. Dennis's idea of defeating them was not wrong, and it was indeed necessary to prepare a special weapon to face such strong factions. Master Bill told Dennis not to worry and promised that he would give him a satisfying magical tool capable of doing his work. Hearing that, Dennis somehow hid his smile and just bowed down in front of the craftsman, leaving it all to the master of the craft. As the scene shifts, we come to the treasure vault once again, where we see Dennis smiling smugly, realizing that the most important part of the plan was in place. So now all he had to do was ensure that everything was foolproof and nothing would go sideways. He immediately called out to the system, telling it to start simulation life, and the system finally activated the simulation life system for the current storyline of the Dwarvian Kingdom. It told Lin that he had endured countless hardships and successfully arrived at the Dwarvian Kingdom. Lin had also become a popular figure among women, favored by the queen and women across the country. However, due to his overwhelming charm, Lin was crazily besieged by women, nearly exhausting his energy to death in the tavern. To save his life, he would have to stay determined and keep staying in the palace to study the art of forging with Duchess Jamila. As time went by, the production of magical tools in the first month reached an astounding 700 pieces, but in the second month, the female dwarves went on strike as they demanded that Lin share their hardships because not a single one of their husbands was coming home. They were just drinking and working in the mines. For that, Lin would have to compensate and offer himself for their satisfaction. The simulation gave Lin 3 options. The first was to agree with the females and share all those workout plans, which would give him a score of 100. The second option was to avoid it because Lin already knew how bad it could become if they worked out too much, which would give a score of +10. The third option was to just act freely as Lin wanted, which would give 30 points. Lin was now nervous, wondering what he should choose, because the first option was so deadly that he was afraid the females would drain him dry, leading to certain death. Even though choosing option 2 was safe, the females would definitely go on strike, and the progress of magic tool manufacturing would be ruined. Lin knew he could only gamble once, so he chose the third option. As the scene again turned into the simulation, we see that Lin tried to act freely and hired some miners and maids, but still, he underestimated the dwarves' tricks and almost lost his life. To avoid getting drunk at night, Lin started to rely on a large amount of hangover remedies to escape its clutches. After 3 months of wits and battles, Lin finally obtained 50 pieces of world-class magic tools, 1,000 pieces in total, including 700 pieces of Tier 10 magic tools and 250 of Tier 1. Lin had experienced the terrifying aspect of being a lord of stamina and luck for the first time, knowing that males also had to protect themselves when going out and not just expend all their stamina for workouts, as it could lead to certain death. The summary score of the system was 50 points out of 100 and a reward of 50 life points. Finally, Lin had made it to the end, and he decided to escape this hell. 3 months later, we see that Lin had time-traveled through the portal and got out into the future, looking at the warehouse where he had a room full of magical tools and armor. Lin was so proud of himself because he had used the power of national mobilization, which was indeed astounding. And fortunately, even when he thought he might resort to violent means, he didn't have to, as the dwarves were serving him willingly and even increasing their efficiency to the max. Even though there were very few legendary magical tools, producing over 1,000 high-level magic tools in such a short time was far beyond Lin's expectations in every aspect. As Lin was walking around looking at the magical tools, he noticed 2 rings glowing in completely different colors, one red and one blue. He realized they were space magic rings and wondered how such precious items were in his possession. But as he looked closer, he realized they were just copies, probably replicated by some dwarf craftsman. He decided to try out the effect of the red space magic ring first, and as he wore it and punched it into the air, a fiery whirlwind came out of the ring, which didn't even require any magic effort from Lin at all. He realized the effect was simply perfect, and after the ripple effect subsided, the ring also worked as an inventory. Lin was still thinking about how to get the magic tools out of the Dwarvian Kingdom, but now with the space rings, he could finally execute his plan. He decided to leave the treasure vault because it was time to find Master Craftsman Bill. Lin wondered how the Master's surprise for him was coming along. As the scene shifts, we see Master Bill at work, going at it with full dedication, not even wincing at the thunderous strikes he was making, each equivalent to causing a high-altitude earthquake. The hammer kept swinging, and every other dwarf was amazed by his determination. As Lin arrived, he sensed a strong sense of oppression. Meanwhile, the other dwarves started whispering to each other about how Master Bill was able to forge a half-moon-level magic tool from incomplete forging blueprints, and about how they needed only the final quenching. One of the dwarves wondered if the master was going to use the extract of dwarven blood so that it could quench even better. Everyone watched as the master took out the spear weapon he made and dropped it into a vicious-looking liquid. It was so potent that lightning was sent down from the heavens and struck straight onto the spear. It was so magnificent that the master held it in his hands, and all the other dwarves knelt down in front of the magnificent lightning spear, while Lin realized that this powerful force belonged to a weapon that was called the Half-Moon Grade Magic Tool. After the thundering was complete, Forging Master Bill told Dennis that this magic tool was specifically forged for him, as it was the Spear of Zeus. And even when it didn't compare to the original, it was more than sufficient. Bill explained that the Zeus spear not only counters the undead race, but also goes hand in hand with the holy system, making it the optimal choice since they don't counter each other. But the only caveat was that it consumed a tremendous amount of stamina, and only someone as vigorous and energetic as Dennis could wield it effectively. Dennis had a look at the shining spear, which was still pulsating with thunder, and grabbed it from the hand of Master Bill, thanking the craftsman for this. He told the man that he'd be going right now, but Bill immediately stopped him, telling him that he should not rush off like this because the Thunder Spear was not yet his to claim and would not heed his summons at all. According to the Forging Master, Dennis would need to do just one more step until it obeyed him, which was none other than blood sacrifice and recognition. As the scene shifted, we see that Dennis had made a wound on his hand and dropped a few drops of blood onto a vicious liquid inside which the forging of the Thunder Spear was done. Looking at the liquid, the Forging Master realized that something was wrong, feeling that the aura was not right. Seeing that, Dennis wondered what was wrong with the Master, but Bill reluctantly told Dennis that it was nothing. He then got ready to complete the final ritual right away. After all the rituals were done, Bill personally came to Dennis and told the boy that now the Thunder Spear of Zeus truly belonged to him, and no one else could wield its power, as they would only be devoured by it. The master hoped that it really terrified the enemy that Dennis had talked about, and the boy calmly smiled, telling the Forging Master that of course it could. Dennis definitely got a strange feeling that the Forging Master Bill was looking at him differently now, but anyway, he decided to take the magic tool to deal with the Holy Temple and the army of undead, so he needed to leave as soon as possible. As the scene shifted to the night, we see that Queen Dale screamed inside her castle, not able to believe that Dennis was gone. A servant came up to the queen with a letter, informing her that they had only found the letter the boy had left for her. Dale quickly grabbed it, opened it, and read it in full shock. The letter said that Dennis had embarked on a journey to forge a future for the dwarven people, as he could not rest content with every other faction suppressing them. He wished to become the dwarven people's hope, so Dennis was going to do everything he could for the dwarven glory to shine again. The letter told Dale to wait for the day the boy would return and that there was no need to search. As the scene shifted, we see that Dennis was actually running through the rocks with a huge overcoat all over his body which was hiding him. Just outside the cave was the outside world. Dennis was really happy, still in his disguised form, that he could finally leave that place. But just then, something stopped Dennis in his tracks. It was a giant man with enchanted armor and weapons, which Dennis looked at with great surprise and anticipation. We see that it was the Forging Master Bill, who first tried to call out to Prince Dennis, but then asked his name exactly, holding a giant hammer in his hand, glowing with dwarvian magic. At first, Dennis pretended, asking Master Bill what he was doing and why he was there, but Master Bill didn't waste a single second telling Dennis to stop pretending. When Dennis bled during the sacrifice ritual, the Forging Master had smelled a powerful cold and evil aura from the blood, which signified that Dennis was not a dwarf at all. Instead, it was the scent of a race that rivaled theirs, a goblin. Hearing that, Dennis no longer kept a happy face and turned serious. As Master Bill looked at the spatial ring that Dennis wore, he immediately realized it was filled with the magical tools they had been making all this time. Unable to contain his anger, the Master immediately ran toward Dennis, but the boy vanished in an instant. Before the old man could process what was happening, a huge kick came toward him, so deadly that it immediately made the giant dwarf crash into the ground several meters away. As this happened, someone put a foot down, radiating a great evil pressure. As the scene shifted, we see that it was none other than our boy Lin in his original form, finally showing his true colors to the forging master. He told him that they didn't have to fight and that Master Bill could return, as Lin really didn't want to kill him. We come to know that since Lin now had the Thunder Spear of Zeus, his overall strength was 2,800. Even the forging master was shocked to see that Lin was actually a real goblin, a high-ranking demon species at that. He wondered why Lin went through all the trouble of coming to the Dwarf Kingdom and stealing so many magic tools, and how he dared to do so even when he knew he was wrong. But Lin told the truth straight to the forging master, that whatever he had said was true, and he was going to use all the magic items to oppose the army of undead and the holy temple. It was then that something clicked inside the forging master. He realized that Lin had made him forge such a weapon, one so superior in strength that it even surpassed the Dwarven Kingdom. The forging master realized and told Lin that he was an extraordinary high-tier, intelligent being with grand ambition, and still, he did not seem to have any malice toward the dwarves, he was just using them. But Master Bill said that since Lin had made full use of him, now, as the weapon craftsman, he would have to make some demands out of Lin too. The old man hoped that Lin would keep his promise that one day he would lead them back to the surface, and that they wouldn't have to hide anymore, because the old man believed that under the influence of Lin's infinite stamina, all the dwarven females could even serve him, and the males would come running over. Even then, Lin turned around, telling Master Bill that as long as he could understand his ambitions, it was good. And if in a few months they could meet again, then the old man was welcome to join Lin's empire with the Dwarven clan. It was then that the old forging master realized that it had been so long since he and the others had gone out of the mainland. The outside world had changed so much, and even the goblins were planning to build their own city now. As the scene shifts, we see that time had passed, and finally, Lin had flown with the dragon once again to the forest which belonged to the Grand Tomb. After the time jump of 3 months, a large-scale cultivation had happened in the goblin tribe, and they now had 50,000 new low-tier goblins along with 1,000 high-level, large-breed goblins with hybrid powers. When Lin got back, he immediately took out all the weapons that the dwarves had created in the last 3 months and gave them to the powerful warriors. These included many swords, shields, axes, and halberds that could perfectly release and enhance different magic attack levels, way higher than their capable attributes, as they were crafted from rare ores. Many daggers along with assassination weapons allowed the assassins to do a short-time teleport and give lethal damage when attacking undetected. The shields were actually on par with the goddess Athena, as they came with divine penetration, and could automatically block and rebound most magic and physical attacks, even blocking many mechanical gun attacks. Gabu also received beautiful earrings made of Cupid's tears that would protect the wearer in an indestructible teardrop-shaped crystal when receiving damage, and only the power of love could break it. Even the Goblin Slayer lady received a Godhead bracelet, which could integrate an army of soldiers sealed within the divine space, ready to be summoned for battle at any time. They could also be strengthened by the divine essence present in the bracelet. The Elven clanmother also received a world-class hunter's longbow, which, after reaching maximum attack, could aim at the enemy and would definitely hit with 100% accuracy. After 3 seconds, it would be fully charged, and no matter any law or shield, the attack could not be avoided by any means. Last but not least was Kylene, who received beautiful earrings which would manifest in the most beautiful form, allowing the wearer to use charm to bewilder the opponent's mind and play with it. Everyone who received these overpowered items immediately thanked their boss, Lin, and assured him that they would follow him forever. But now it was the turn for the fallen angel Alice, as Lin gave her a peculiar-looking dark sword. When she heard about what it was, Lin gave the lady a mission to conquer the power within the sword telling her that it was really important. We come to know that this sword was named the Ominous Blade, which had many souls of dragons and phantoms inside. If the wearer could conquer them, then she would transform into dark kin form, and all the attacks would carry a blood drain effect. But if the user could not control it, then the souls would corrupt the wearer. Looking at the ominous weapon, the fallen angel wondered if she should not get a holy-type weapon because her attribute was actually heavenly. But Lin started manipulating the lady once again, telling her that, as the weapon contained powerful demons within it, Alice would need to conquer them, because if they fell into others' hands and wreaked havoc in the world, it would be pretty bad. After explaining, Lin asked the lady if this was not a sacred mission, and the fallen angel agreed without any second thought, immediately grabbing the blade and absorbing the devilish aura that was spreading all around. This was so taxing on Alice that she was shocked for a moment and knelt down as she started having visions of a dangerous dragon-type monster trying to control the lady and have its way with her. As the scene shifted, we saw that the dragon wanted Alice to lose control as it started possessing the lady. The monster wanted Alice to let him do all the work and magnify her hatred towards everyone. And if she did so, the soul promised her that it would give her the power that could help her achieve everything in the whole world. But in exchange, Alice would have to go on a rampage. At first, the soul was actually able to take control of Alice as she raised the weapon against our boy, Lin himself. And even the hybrid goblins were shocked, along with the ladies, wondering if Alice was going to attack their leader, because the aura coming out from the fallen angel was terrifying. They didn't know what to do since Alice was clearly more powerful than them. But on the other hand, Lin was laughing to everyone's surprise. The boy was once again proven right when Alice came back to her senses for a moment, and the demon soul could not believe that someone was able to resist his control over an individual's body. Alice dared the demon soul to try and bewitch her, chanting the name of the great deity, wanting the powerful being to stay with her as she screamed its name, purging all the demonic power away. The souls could not believe that someone could resist their evilness, and finally, the ominous blade was in full control of the fallen angel Alice, who smiled before fainting, thinking that the gods were indeed helping her and that this was the right choice she had made. After the whole thing was done, Alice promised Lin that she would see through the entire process to the end without fail. Lin, knowing how manipulated the lady was, immediately grabbed her and told her that God was with her every step of the way. As Lin was kneeling down, Gabu came rushing in along with the Goblin Slayer lady, telling Lin that a while ago, the man-eating Griffon came to the Goblin tribe looking really ragged with one wing broken and was urgently looking for him. But as Lin wasn't in the tribe, he left. The Goblin Slayer lady continued that she originally wanted to ask the Griffon what was wrong, but the creature didn't say a word and insisted it was nothing. Lin knew that if it was the man-eating Griffon, it must be an important matter, so he decided to go and check it out. The scene shifted to the giant bird forest, where everyone was wailing and crying. Just then, Lin appeared behind them, telling them not to be scared because he was a friend. But as Lin looked around, he saw that all the bird soldiers were heavily injured. He wondered what had happened to them and how they had been hurt so badly, and where the man-eating Griffon Lord actually was. Then Lin heard a calm, feminine voice with a trembling tone. It was the Griffon Lord's wife, who said that her husband had fallen. Lin saw that the Griffon was heavily wounded and wondered what had happened, and how the Griffon Lord ended up like this. The female Griffon explained that it was the lords from the west and north of the Grand Tomb who had done this. One day, the wife saw that the Griffon Lord was severely injured, so he went to the Goblin tribe to ask for help. But as Lin wasn't there, he didn't ask anyone else from the tribe for fear that they would get hurt because of him. When the Griffon Lord returned, the northern and western lords brought their people, broke off his wings, roasted them, and ate them right in front of him, beating all the soldiers and even trying to do bad things to the female lord. The soldiers were barely holding them off, but it was getting hard for them. Now Lin was angry. He asked the lady why the lords of the Northwest wanted to attack them, and if they were not afraid of the Grand Tomb. The lady explained that it was because the Griffon had recommended Lin to the Grand Tomb, and that he had become the Great Lord, which made them angry and hold a grudge. Lin now understood the full story and told the lady not to worry, apologizing for getting her involved in such an undeserved disaster. Turning around and walking away from the camp, he told the lady that he took full responsibility for the entire tribe's injuries and just wanted her to wait for him. We see that after 1 hour, Lin had got Freya with him, who was using high-level healing magic called Healing Rain as she was levitating and causing the rain to turn into one with healing properties, which was healing all the flesh-eating griffins with ease. Meanwhile, the flesh-eating griffin soldiers wondered if this was a high-level healing magic being cast on them because they were already feeling better. They were all thanking our boy Lin and the Goblin tribe for saving them along with their lord, which was really great. But Freya did not stop, and as the scene shifts, we see that she was using the redemption technique of super high-level healing magic on the flesh-eating griffin lord as he was immediately feeling relief. And as the magic was getting dispersed slowly but surely, the flesh-eating griffin lord woke up, and his wife was the first one who was really happy that the lord was finally awake. But as the creature looked around, he saw Lin in front of him and wondered about why the goblin leader was there in their nest, and if the griffin was hallucinating or if he was dead because his wounds were not even hurting anymore. But Lin told the flesh-eating griffin that he was not dead, and that it was all real and not a hallucination because Lin had come to save him. After a while, we see that both the griffin and Lin were talking as the bird explained that the damn guys were repeatedly causing trouble for his people, and he could not just swallow it empty-handed. The Lord asked Lin for help in something, and the boy immediately agreed because he had planned to do it beforehand already. Lin smiled devilishly as his one eye glared while he told the plan to the flesh-eating griffin that he was going to summon a large number of monsters that would help the bird get revenge. But before that, Lin had something to give to the creature. It was the Wings of Chaos, which deal continuous slashing damage to enemies on the path, and with it, the flight speed of the creature would be boosted to 200%. The flesh-eating griffin was shocked, wondering if he should even take this because it was a high-grade magical tool and it was precious. But Lin was anticlimactic with this kind of thing, telling him that even when he needed a pair of wings more than anyone else, he was sacrificing it and giving it to his friend instead. And now, he did not want to take it. Knowing that this must have hurt Lin, the bird immediately agreed. But just then Lin got behind the flesh-eating monster, telling him that before attaching the wings, the bird would have to sacrifice the other wing that was intact. So Lin wondered if the Griffin Lord was actually ready, because it was going to hurt like hell. But on the other hand, the Griffin wanted it to be over instantly, so he told Lin to do it. But as it happened, the whole Griffin tribe could hear such an intense scream that scared everyone from kids to adults. But as the scene shifts and the blades were attached, we see that now the Griffin monster was cutting multiple heavy tree logs without much effort as the blades in the wings were really chaos and sharp as hell. Meanwhile, we see that Lin along with Freya and the Griffin Lord's wife were surprised by how powerful the monster had become. Meanwhile, we see that for the Griffin Lord, this new feeling was amazing, as he did not even know how to thank Lin for such a great gift. But on the other hand, Lin was just smiling with a red aura pulsating through him as he told the flesh-eating Griffin Lord that it was nothing, and the material was not as precious to him as the revenge it would bring. He wanted the Griffin to get ready to set off because he could not wait to feel the exhilarating sensation of having revenge. But deep inside, Lin knew that it was perfect for testing the magic tool and to see what kind of effect it would really have. But hearing that, even the Griffin Lord was excited, smiling and telling Lin that he had been longing for this too. As the scene shifts, we come to a different place full of rocky mountains and a giant lake which was going off to distant places. As the scene comes closer, we see a small insect sitting on a branch which was floating through the lake, but it was grabbed by a monster suddenly and got eaten the moment it was grabbed. We see that at a distance, both Lin and the Griffin Lord were standing as he explained to Lin that this season was the season when dragonflies lay their eggs and what a demon loves to suck their blood the most, so they were inside the lake for now. He told Lin not to be fooled with the calm water surface because, in fact, a large number of water demons were lurking beneath it and causing the ruckus. But as the scene shifts and we get to another camera angle, we see that Lin was present there with a large army of goblins who were just hiding so that they don't get spotted. The hybrid goblins asked Lin if they would have to go into the water because they cannot swim. As Lin analyzed the situation, he told everyone to get ready for the experience-gaining session that they were going to get. But upon hearing that, the elves asked Lin about how he was going to get the water demons out. Hearing that, Lin smiled, explaining to everyone that the lake was spanning dozens of miles, and there was no way that there were only water demons living inside it. As soon as Lin said that, he immediately used his monster summoning technique and glared at the lake for it, knowing that he just needed to use his mind to take control of all the demons inside the lake other than the water demons, and the thing would be done. After a while of using the monster summoning, we see that the lake was getting crimson in color due to the blood, and shortly multiple water demons jumped out of the lake as they wondered about what was going on and why the beasts inside the lake had gone mad, because now they were biting all the water demons even when they had killed a bunch, and they were not getting afraid and chasing them to bite without any delay. One of the demons also got swallowed into the belly of a giant monster fish, but luckily he crawled out through its skin pores, otherwise it would have been very unlucky for him. As the scene shifts, we see that a giant creature came out of the water while grabbing multiple sea beasts in his hands, thinking that something was definitely wrong as someone was controlling these beasts, and there was no way that they would be attacking them otherwise. We see that it was the water demon lord with the highest power in the whole tribe. But as the monster got out, Lin laughed, promising the demon lord that he would be given a death full of mercy because he was smart enough to figure it out. But on the other hand, the water demon lord was laughing, thinking that he could do so, realizing that it was the same griffin that he plucked the feathers from a while ago, wondering about how it grew back and why the griffin had called a bunch of useless goblins as helpers. But suddenly, one other water demon noticed that there were humans and elves present on the side of the lake, and added to that, they were females. We see that they were talking about the elven mother and Alice, and the demon lord still had the audacity to order his demons to grab the women over there for having some fun. And as multiple sea demons got to that, and some of them started attacking Lin, the boy immediately used the skill howl to greatly impact their brains and cause them to become unconscious. It was now Lin's turn to say the order as he told the goblins to kill the males and grill them like fried fish to eat along with keeping all the females for further practice and justice. On that order, the hybrid goblins got into action, hacking and slashing all the sea monsters without much effort, as we see that even the elven clan mother attacked them without any further warning, aiming and giving headshots straight through the skull. The water demon lord was shocked, wondering what was going on and how all his soldiers were down. Thinking that maybe the enemies were not actual goblins but another species in disguise, he screamed at all of them to stop, his face filled with anger. But to his surprise, he was the one who was stopped by a slash so sharp that it struck straight across his face. It was the flesh-eating Griffon with his steel blades, determined to make sure the demon would never forget what he had done to them. The water demon lord cried out in pain and agony, screaming about how a filthy and ugly giant chicken dared to defy him. Enraged, the monster leaped at the flesh-eating Griffon with his sharp claws, but the Griffon was faster, circling the demon's arm in mere seconds and slashing it into multiple pieces without mercy. The water demon lord screamed again, horrified by what he was seeing. Lin was smiling, realizing he wasn't even needed in the fight because the flesh-eating Griffon was handling things personally. With his current strength, he should have been able to handle everything else. But then Lin thought to himself that the water demon lord gains an epic level boost on rainy days. Since the weather was still clear, he assumed it wouldn't rain. However, as the water demon lord lay wounded, he suddenly screamed while looking behind him, commanding another monster to cry already, wondering what she was waiting for. The creature then began screaming in pain and agony, wailing loudly, and we learned that she was the crying rain demon. As she cried, rain started pouring down, and it wasn't normal rain, it was heavy and unrelenting. Seeing this, both Lin and the flesh-eating Griffon realized things were about to go bad. The Griffon immediately turned toward Lin, telling him that he, along with his goblins and allies, should retreat quickly because the water demon species were going to gain an insane boost in their powers. But it was already too late. The water demon lord started laughing, his eyes glowing crimson red as he grew gigantic from the rainfall. Hearing his laughter, the flesh-eating Griffon turned around, but it was too late. With just one scream from the water demon lord, the Griffon was thrown several meters away, the impact so strong that he crashed straight into the water. The water demon lord then leapt toward Lin, thinking it was now the goblin leader's turn to face his demise. As the punch approached, Lin was doing something, but upon impact, the water demon lord thought his attack had succeeded. Seeing the hole he had made, he laughed loudly, thinking Lin was already 6 feet under and didn't even need a grave. But before he could realize what had happened, the hole was revealed to be deliberate. Lin emerged from it, his hands transformed into sharp claws. As he got up, he told the monster that it was now his turn to attack. The slash was so powerful that the giant monster screamed in agony, wondering how such a small goblin could inflict such pain. Lin had used the corrupted blood skill to morph his hands into devilish claws. Even the water demon lord realized that something was eroding his power from within, and his toughest scales were being cut apart. But for Lin, it wasn't over yet. He started spinning in the air, readying another attack, the same one the water demon lord had used before, but now in beam form. The monster was terrified, realizing that Lin was actually a frightening opponent who could easily pierce even the hardest scales of his body. The water demon lord knew he had to escape and quickly dove into the water to gain the immense speed boost of his element. The flesh-eating Griffon, however, stayed on his trail, unwilling to let the monster escape. But as the water demon lord fled, he called out to the lake ghost monster, begging it to come and save him. He knew that even if he got bitten to death by the monsters in the lake, it was still better than facing the goblin head-on. The Griffon, aware of the lake ghost monster's existence, immediately stopped his pursuit. The water demon lord ran off, and from the lake emerged a terrifying creature, pale white skin, multiple heads, and shrieking like a psychotic spirit, its entire body bound by chains. Even a slight touch from the monster caused the Griffon's legs to be covered in black miasma. Realizing his mistake, he quickly flew away to cleanse himself, heading toward Alice. He told her that lake ghosts were evil spirits, and that the corpses and chains were just their hosts. If Alice got injured by the ghostly aura, her life force would rapidly drain away. But even after hearing that, Alice knew exactly what to do. She immediately drew her devil's sword and unleashed an evil spirit straight toward the lake ghost monster. The spirit took the form of a massive dragon, clenching its teeth and biting straight into the ghost's face, finishing it off in just one blow. For the flesh-eating Griffon, it was pure shock. He couldn't believe that a weapon could still kill demons so easily.